Well, yesterday we turned a 2-minute news segment into a 30-minute long video. I hope we're not doing it again. In case you missed it, 2 days ago Riot released a new dev update. And this time around it was a really important one because it also addressed what's happening to the lore of League of Legends. In fact, those news are so massive and so worth talking about that I might make 2 extra follow-up videos, talking about how all of this is related to Arcane and Riot's MMO. Because even after talking about it for 30 minutes, there is still more under the hood. But that's not gonna be the topic of today's video. Instead, we're gonna be focusing on everything else that was mentioned in that dev update. Meaning that we'll talk about the new champion teasers, the new reveals regarding Skarner, and we'll even talk about some really cool quality of life changes related to Jax. But on top of all of that, some people may not know that Riot also released the champion roadmap as a separate post. So whenever we talk about one of the new champions, we will jump back and forth between this video and that post. So strap up, because this is going to be quite a ride. Once again, the dev update brings in Meddler and Brightmoon, who at this point are really good at delivering all of these updates. I am pretty sure everyone likes these videos. Anyway, right at the beginning, they immediately transition into Riot Lexical, who dives into all of the new champions. They mentioned how the last time they talked, it was before we got Naafiri and Briar, both of which released to a pretty good success, and that's both on the design front and the gameplay front. Somehow, most people actually like these, after which we get our first announcement. The next champion released in League of Legends will be the Ink Mage, which was a champion concept that has floated around League of Legends for literally years. And here they refer to him as a new artistic mage called Hui. That's 2 letters away from being banned in the US. Here they mention that Hui has the talent to bring his artistic vision into life. By which they are most likely referring to the fact that he'll be using his painting to make his spells. They then also mention that Hui started under his masters, but over time he transcended their skills and he developed his own unique art style. Which means that we have a bit of a prodigy on our hands, which is nothing too new in this universe. The interesting part then kicks in when it's mentioned that they have a lot of room for learning, experimenting, and mastering. By which they are teasing that this will be a complex champion, which is something that was confirmed before on Reddit. So let's hope it's not gonna be as crazy as Aphelios. Because right now, everyone is wondering if they stick to the original idea of the Ink Mage. Because back like 6 years ago, Riot was toying with the idea of a champion who would draw their spells using your cursor. But that mechanic just turned out to be too complex. So fast forward into a few advances in technology, and now we don't know what's gonna happen. But even though that is it for all the info about Hui we got from the video, we did get something more in the post. For the most part, here they repeat what was said in the video, with the champion being all about exploration and transcending to a new level of artistry, but they also play around with the word blueprint here. Meaning that using a blueprint, you can paint a spell and then save it for later, or it is literally that the champion is just using papers in their animations to cast their spells. So let's not get crazy here. We then also get a few words from Riot Orchidean, who is the narrative writer. Here we learned that it is going to be an understanding champion, or at least he is trying to be. And we got a quote that art requires a certain empathy, which I assume will be one of the in-game quotes. But that's really it for Hui. So after that, Riot confirmed that they will be moving towards a new creature, though it will be a bit cuter than Naafiri. But while it will be cute and small, spelled S-M-O-L, they will be smoldering with power. They then also said that they will be sauntering onto the rift, meaning that maybe it is going to be a lazy creature. But also they mentioned that they will be tied to a royal status, which immediately raised all the alarms. We have an egg that is on fire with something small and cute inside, which is connected to a royal status. They banked, didn't they? That's what the Mage Seeker was teasing, isn't it? But apparently the egg is also far from home, so maybe not. Also, the egg is supposed to be the heir to royalty, so maybe it is related to an unknown brood. But then again, it would be Jarvan's son. It would be the heir to the Demacian royalty. Oh my god! Although the post also mentions that something is watching this dragon, and it is creating some kind of a safe space for all dragons. So maybe Shyvana is making a draconic haven in Demacia. But that is it for the egg too. So moving on, further after that, we will also get a Vastayan solo laner from the forests, with the ability to see something others can't. That is literally all the info we got here, which would make you think that it's gonna be another Ionian. But nope, at the end of the post it was mentioned that this is indeed a Freljordian Vastaya, which means that we are getting the first ever playable Freljordian Vastaya. And since she comes from the Alpine forests, she will most likely be from the south, so perhaps around the Avarosan areas. But that is it for this adventurer too. So after that, we got some long-awaited news on Skarner. As we learned last time, Riot decided to turn Skarner into an Ishtali defender, which is a theme that fits him really well. In hindsight, it also makes sense why they didn't go for all the Hextech connections. With all the previous Hextech stuff being retconned, I think they still could have made him work, but connecting him into Ishtal gives him a lot more freedom to do crazy things. And looking at these concepts, I have to say, he looks really cool. The base Ishtali version alone is stunning. I'm not sure if the puns are intended, we'll have a look at the kit in a moment. But each of these skins fits really well too. So first, they confirmed some basic facts. For example, Skarner will have 6 legs. So even though you only see 4 here, just remember he has 2 tiny ones in the front. But they also revealed that he will have some interactions with walls, and his tails will be there to pick up giant rocks. Maybe that's another Skarner reference to Pokemon, you know, rock throw. And yes, as you can see in the preview, it looks awesome. Speaking of which, even though this is really it for what they have shown in the video, the post actually gives us a lot more. So jumping over there, let's have a look at all the details. For example, a cool detail is that at the beginning they tried giving Skarner a lot more legs. But they ran into an issue where having 12 different appendages as well as 3 tails was simply too much. That's why they gave him 6 legs with only 4 of those being properly visible. It's to prevent him from looking like an octopus. Next they talked a little bit about the earth magic. Coming from Ishtal, it makes sense that he would be connected to elemental magic. And since his previous connections were to earth, as well as the fact that they wanted to give him something that felt magical and physical at the same time, it simply made sense to go for earth. In a way, they wanted to give him a similar connection to what Melio has with fire. But they also had to make Skarner feel different from Thalia. So, as an example, Skarner isn't using magic to just rip up giant boulders. He just reaches down and picks them up. And this idea became so fun, it became the core of his kit as well as his fantasy. So next, Riot Llama talks about the gameplay. First, he talks a bit about the Impale alone. This ability was arguably the only reason anyone played Skarner at all. It was a form of CC that was incredibly valuable. But, at the same time, there is a lot of room for improvement. So first, they had to have a look at Skarner's power budget. Previously, Skarner's base abilities were infamously weak, which was on purpose. It's because it had to balance out the raw power of the ultimate. So for the new version, it is important they tune it down so they can make his base abilities shine. The second thing to consider is how satisfying is it to use his ultimate. In many ways, it is fine to make an ability weaker if it is more fun to use. Especially if, again, you want to make the base abilities stronger. And finally, even though most of the power came from the fact that it was point and click, this kind of ability doesn't really feel exciting. Because literally every time you use it, the outcome is exactly the same. There is little to no variance. Now, unfortunately, Riot is not ready to show us the new ultimate yet. But at least they gave us these 3 challenges they are thinking about. So next, Riot Hoboboy talks about the specifics of his kit. But at the beginning, they make sure you remember that all of this is still work in progress. One of the main ideas of the entire kit is to turn Skarner into a primordial monster. So starting with his W, it is a simple stomp. That's it. As you can see, it gives him a little bit of a shield and it damages everything around him. In a way, it is a merge of his previous Q and W. Speaking of which, I very quickly want to point out that as you can see, the model here looks different from what was previously shown. And that's because the concept you saw before is actually the ruined skin. This is the real base version. I just wanted to mention that because I saw some people confused about it. Unless I'm wrong and that is really the base skin. Now I'm confused. Anyway, let's move on to his Q. His Q allows you to rip a boulder from the earth. At least, this is what the first cast does. The animation locks him in place for a while on purpose. It's to make it feel like you are preparing for something powerful. Now, while he's holding the boulder, Skarner's auto attacks will be enhanced. But he can also throw the boulder for a big chunk of damage. Now, normally, skill shots would indicate a more precise champion. But here, the raw size and the splash of the boulder still sells you the monster. Speaking of which, lastly, we get to his E. This one makes him charge forward with limited control. Kinda like Sion's charge. If he rams into an enemy, he will pick them up along for a ride. But after he connects with an enemy, the charge will quickly end. With that said, during that brief window, you have the ability to pin them to a wall to stun them and deal bonus damage. The team also likes the idea that Skarner doesn't care about walls. They are not an obstacle, just mere suggestions. So his E will also let him charge through walls. And when he does that, he will pick up a boulder along the way. Which honestly sounds really awesome. But that is it for Skarner's kit, and that is it for all the updates we got for him. As a reminder, the plan still is to release him in early 2024. So until then, you can go hibernate again. In the meantime, let's finish the rest of the dev update. Of course, next, the dev update goes through all the lore news, which we have talked about extensively. But after that, Riot mentioned something they previously promised. They told people they would be able to choose their own language directly in the client. And while it took a little bit longer to implement, they are happy to announce that this feature will go live in November. This means that you will be able to get any one of the 21 supported languages freely at any time. Just keep in mind that each of these language packs is about 2 GB in size. The funny thing about this one is that about 2 days ago before this update went live, when we talked about Jax, I told people how awesome the Japanese dub is compared to the English dub. Which made a lot of people remember that yeah, Riot promised this feature. So, in a series of funny coincidences, you can now play with your favorite Japanese Jax. Next, Meddler also brought up the Blue Essence Emporium. It was gone for a while, and then recently they brought it back. The problem there is, it ran into quite a few system issues. And what was offered in the Emporium was quite limited. So, in December, they are bringing it back again. But this time, it will have all the eligible chromas available, all the mystery icons, wards and gifting, as well as the 50% off from rune pages. So all the game grinders, rejoice! And speaking of grinding games, lastly, Bright Moon also mentioned Quickplay. Quickplay is a way to play League which is going to replace Blind Pick. Long story short, even though Blind Pick is meant for the most casual players, that's if you don't count stuff like ARAM, it still doesn't give you the best experience. You still have to go through the entire picking sessions, you still have to wait for everyone to get their loadouts, and the entire process just slows everyone down. In contrast, Quickplay should be a lot faster. You just pick your favorite champion and your role, and you skip the entire champion select. It is exactly like playing a game of TFT. You just press play and you get into a game that is prepared for you to play your favorite champion. And even though Bright Moon said that Quickplay will be available on PBE by the end of October, I saw that some people already managed to load it, so I assume it is already up on PBE. So go and try grinding there. But that is it for this entire update. It was honestly a pretty good one. And I say this after already talking about a portion of these news for 30 minutes. The update on Skarner was amazing. It is cool to see the awaited comeback of the Ink Mage. But most importantly, the lore community has bonded again. Because now everyone is trying to figure out, did they bang?